Alright, let's talk about the first part of Atomic Habits called the fundamentals. This section comes right after the introduction and before the main numbered chapters. The subtitle here is Why Tiny Changes Make a Big Difference, and that really sets the tone for the whole book. It starts with a simple but powerful idea. Small changes, what the author calls atomic habits, can lead to huge results over time. Think of it like compound interest, but for personal growth. Every small habit adds up, and over time the impact becomes massive. One of the key takeaways here is the shift in focus from goals to systems. A lot of people set goals like I want to lose weight or I want to read more, but they struggle to follow through. The book argues that the problem isn't you, it's your system. You don't rise to the level of your goals. You fall to the level of your systems. That's why instead of obsessing over results, you should build better daily routines that support long-term change. Another major idea is the connection between habits and identity. Instead of building habits based on what you want to achieve, the book suggests focusing on who you want to become. For example, don't say, I want to run a marathon. Say, I'm becoming a runner. Every time you act in alignment with that identity, you're casting a vote for the kind of person you want to be. Habits, in a way, are how you shape your identity through consistent action. The book also introduces a simple four-step model that explains how habits actually work: cue, craving, response, and reward. This is the backbone of the entire habit loop. From this model, we get what the author calls the 4 laws of behavior change. Basically, 4 simple rules to make good habits easier and bad habits harder, to build a good habit. Make it obvious, attractive, easy, and satisfying. To break a bad habit, do the opposite, make it invisible, unattractive, difficult, and unsatisfying. These 4 laws are like tools you can use to design your environment and routine in a way that supports the behavior you actually want. So overall, the fundamentals lays down the foundation for everything else in the book. It explains why small changes matter, why systems beat goals, how habits are tied to your identity, and how to use the 4-step model to make meaningful, lasting change. Alright, let's dive into Chapter 1 of Atomic Habits. The title is The Surprising Power of Atomic Habits. This chapter kicks things off by challenging a common idea, that big changes require big actions. Instead, it shows us that real, lasting transformation often comes from tiny adjustments, repeated consistently over time. The author starts with a powerful example: the British cycling team. For years, they were terrible, barely winning anything. But when a new coach came in, he focused on improving everything by just 1%. Not huge changes, just small tweaks in areas like diet, sleep, equipment, even the seats on the bikes. Over time, those tiny improvements added up. Within a few years, they were dominating the Olympics and winning the Tour de France. That's the power of getting 1% better every day. It might not seem like much at first. If you get just 1% better each day for a year, you'll end up 37 times better by the end of the year. On the flip side, getting 1% worse every day leads to a slow, invisible decline. That's why habits are so important. They're the compound interest of self-improvement. Just like money multiplies through compound interest, the effects of your habits multiply as you repeat them. The tricky part: these changes don't feel exciting in the beginning. If you go to the gym today, you won't see a six-pack tomorrow. If you eat a salad for lunch, you won't lose 10 pounds overnight. Results lag behind effort. But if you stick with the process, the results eventually show up, usually all at once, like a breakthrough moment. The book calls this the plateau of latent potential. It's that frustrating period where you feel like you're putting in the work but not seeing the outcome. A lot of people give up here, but the truth is, progress is happening behind the scenes. It just hasn't reached the surface yet. And here's something the author really emphasizes: your outcomes are a lagging measure of your habits. Your weight is a lagging measure of your eating habits. Your bank account is a lagging measure of your spending habits. Your knowledge is a lagging measure of your learning habits. What you repeatedly do eventually shows up in your life, for better or worse. So the real secret isn't making huge changes overnight. It's committing to small, consistent habits, even when the results aren't visible right away. That's how you build momentum. That's how you create lasting change. Alright, let's go a bit deeper into Chapter 2, because this one's actually a game changer. We usually think of habit change like this: backhand index pointing right, I want to achieve a goal, so I need to build certain habits to reach it. But James Clear flips that logic around. He says the most powerful way to change your habits is to change your identity. He introduces this 3-layer model of behavior change. Outcomes: this is the surface level. It's what you get. For example, I want to lose 5 kg, or I want to publish a book. Processes: this is what you do. The routines, the systems, like your diet or your writing habit. Identity: this is the deepest level. It's what you believe. Things like I'm the kind of person who eats healthy, or I'm a writer. And here's the key insight. Most people start with outcomes and try to work inward, but real, lasting change starts with identity and works outward. Let me give you an example. Let's say two people are trying to quit smoking. You offer both of them a cigarette. One says, "No thanks, I'm trying to quit." The other says, "No thanks, I'm not a smoker." See the difference? The first person still sees themselves as a smoker who's trying to change. The second person sees themselves as a non-smoker already. That's identity, and it makes the habit way more likely to stick. So how do you change your identity? Simple, through repetition. Every time you take an action, you're casting a vote for the type of person you want to become. If you go to the gym even just once, you're casting a vote for being a healthy person. If you write one sentence, you're casting a vote for being a writer. You don't need to win 100% of the votes, you just need to keep showing up. Small wins, repeated consistently, shape who you become. And this works both ways. Your current habits are evidence of your current identity. If you snooze your alarm every day, maybe you believe, "I'm not a morning person." If you procrastinate often, maybe you believe, "I'm lazy," or "I always put things off." But the truth is, you're not stuck with that identity. You can build a new one habit at a time. In short, backhand index pointing right, don't focus on what you want to achieve. Focus on who you want to become, and then use small habits to prove that identity to yourself over and over again. Now let's get into chapter 3. This is where things start getting very practical. James Clear lays out the science behind how habits are formed, and he breaks it down into a 4-step loop. Cue, this is the trigger. Something in your environment or routine that tells your brain to start a behavior. Craving, this is the desire that follows the cue. It's not the habit itself, but the feeling you're chasing. Response, this is the actual habit or action you perform. Reward, this is the benefit or payoff you get, which tells your brain, "Hey, this was worth it, let's do it again." Let's say your phone buzzes. Cue, you feel curious or anxious. Craving, you check your phone. Response, and you see a fun message or notification. Reward. Your brain loves rewards, so next time you're bored or anxious, your brain remembers that checking your phone made you feel better, and the loop starts again. That's how habits get reinforced. Now here's the genius part. James turns this loop into the 4 laws of behavior change. These laws are like a recipe you can use to either build good habits or break bad ones. To build a good habit, you want to make it obvious, don't rely on willpower, design your environment, want to drink more water, leave a water bottle on your desk, make it attractive, pair the habit with something you enjoy, want to run more. Listen to your favorite podcast only when you're running, make it easy, reduce friction, start tiny, want to journal daily, just write 1 sentence a day to start, make it satisfying, give yourself a small reward or a visual cue that shows progress, like crossing off a habit tracker. To break a bad habit, flip those same laws, make it invisible, remove the cues. Put the junk food out of sight, make it unattractive, reframe your mindset, remind yourself why this habit hurts you, make it difficult, add friction. Log out of social media, delete the app, make it unsatisfying, add accountability or a consequence. And remember, small changes matter. The goal isn't to overhaul your life overnight. It's to make the right thing easier and the wrong thing harder, just a little bit at a time. So chapter 3 gives us the playbook, a clear, repeatable system to design good habits and phase out the bad ones. And this framework, the 4 laws, is what the rest of the book will build on. All right, let's go a bit deeper into chapter 2, because this one's actually a game changer. We usually think of habit change like this: backhand index pointing right, I want to achieve a goal, so I need to build certain habits to reach it. But James Clear flips that logic around. He says the most powerful way to change your habits is to change your identity. He introduces this 3-layer model of behavior change. Outcomes, this is the surface level, it's what you get. For example, I want to lose 5 kg, or I want to publish a book. Processes, this is what you do. The routines, the systems, like your diet or your writing habit. Identity, this is the deepest level, it's what you believe. Things like, I'm the kind of person who eats healthy, or I'm a writer. And here's the key insight. Most people start with outcomes and try to work inward, but real, lasting change starts with identity and works outward. Let me give you an example. Let's say 2 people are trying to quit smoking. You offer both of them a cigarette. One says, "No thanks, I'm trying to quit." The other says, "No thanks, I'm not a smoker." See the difference? The first person still sees themselves as a smoker who's trying to change. The second person sees themselves as a non-smoker already. That's identity, and it makes the habit way more likely to stick. So how do you change your identity? Simple, through repetition. Every time you take an action, you're casting a vote for the type of person you want to become. If you go to the gym even just once, you're casting a vote for being a healthy person. If you write 1 sentence, you're casting a vote for being a writer. You don't need to win 100% of the votes, you just need to keep showing up. Small wins, repeated consistently, shape who you become. And this works both ways. Your current habits are evidence of your current identity. If you snooze your alarm every day, maybe you believe, I'm not a morning person. If you procrastinate often, maybe you believe, I'm lazy, or I always put things off. But the truth is, you're not stuck with that identity. You can build a new one habit at a time. In short, backhand index pointing right, don't focus on what you want to achieve. Focus on who you want to become, and then use small habits to prove that identity to yourself over and over again. Now let's get into chapter 3. This is where things start getting very practical. James Clear lays out the science behind how habits are formed, and he breaks it down into a 4-step loop. Cue, this is the trigger. Something in your environment or routine that tells your brain to start a behavior. Craving, this is the desire that follows the cue. It's not the habit itself, but the feeling you're chasing. Response, this is the actual habit or action you perform. Reward, this is the benefit or payoff you get, which tells your brain, hey, this was worth it, let's do it again. Let's say your phone buzzes. Cue, you feel curious or anxious. Craving, you check your phone. Response, and you see a fun message or notification. Reward. Your brain loves rewards, so next time you're bored or anxious, your brain remembers that checking your phone made you feel better, and the loop starts again. That's how habits get reinforced. Now here's the genius part. James turns this loop into the 4 laws of behavior change. These laws are like a recipe you can use to either build good habits or break bad ones. To build a good habit, you want to make it obvious, don't rely on willpower, design your environment, want to drink more water, leave a water bottle on your desk, make it attractive, pair the habit with something you enjoy, want to run more. Listen to your favorite podcast only when you're running, make it easy, reduce friction, start tiny, want to journal daily, just write 1 sentence a day to start, make it satisfying, give yourself a small reward or a visual cue that shows progress, like crossing off a habit tracker. To break a bad habit, flip those same laws, make it invisible, remove the cues. Put the junk food out of sight, make it unattractive, reframe your mindset, remind yourself why this habit hurts you, make it difficult, add friction. Log out of social media, delete the app, make it unsatisfying, add accountability or a consequence. And remember, small changes matter. The goal isn't to overhaul your life overnight. It's to make the right thing easier and the wrong thing harder, just a little bit at a time. So chapter 3 gives us the playbook, a clear, repeatable system to design good habits and phase out the bad ones. And this framework, the 4 laws, is what the rest of the book will build on. Chapter 5 is called The Best Way to Start a New Habit. This chapter is all about making the first law of behavior change, make it obvious, practical for starting a new habit. It opens with a study from Great Britain where researchers helped people build better exercise habits. They divided participants into 3 groups, a control group, a motivation group that read about the benefits of exercise, and a third group. This third group was asked to plan exactly when and where they would exercise, using a specific format like, during the next week, I will partake in at least 20 minutes of vigorous exercise on day of week, at time and the place. The results were striking. Only 35% and 38% of the control and motivation groups exercised at least once per week, but 91% of the third group, who had made a plan specifying time and place, successfully exercised. This demonstrates the power of what the book calls an implementation intention, stating your intention for a habit by linking it to a specific time and location. The chapter then introduces another powerful strategy for making cues obvious. Habit stacking. This method, created by B.J. Fogg, involves pairing a new habit with a current habit you already perform. The formula is simple. After current habit, I will new habit. For example, you could decide, after I pour my cup of coffee each morning, I will meditate for 1 minute. After I take off my work shoes, I will immediately change into my workout clothes. After I sit down to dinner, I will say one thing I'm grateful for that happened today. The key to successful habit stacking is ensuring the current habit you use as the cue is highly specific and immediately actionable. Vague cues, like the author's initial attempt to do push-ups when I take a break for lunch, are less effective because they lack clarity on exactly when and where the new habit should be performed. Changing the stack to, when I close my laptop for lunch, I will do 10 push-ups next to my desk, removed the ambiguity and made the habit much easier to stick to. In essence, Chapter 5 shows that making your new habits obvious isn't just about wanting to do them, but about having a clear, concrete plan for where and when they will fit seamlessly into your daily life, whether by assigning them a specific time and place, implementation intention, or by linking them to something you already do, habit stacking. Chapter 6 is called Motivation is Overrated. Environment often matters more, so this chapter is pretty cool because it dives into the first law of behavior change, make it obvious. The main point here is that your environment plays a massive role in your habits, maybe even more than how motivated you feel. It kicks off with this story about a doctor named Anne Thorndike at Massachusetts General Hospital. She had this seemingly crazy idea to get thousands of hospital staff and visitors to eat better without trying to change their willpower or motivation at all. She didn't even plan on talking to them about it. What did she and her colleagues do? They changed the choice architecture of the hospital cafeteria. For example, they used to only have soda in the fridges right by the cash registers. They added water to each of those fridges and even put baskets of bottled water near the food stations around the room. Soda was still there, but water was suddenly everywhere you looked. The result: over the next 3 months, soda sales went down and water sales shot up. This shows you don't need more motivation. Making the good choice more obvious and easier to access in the environment made all the difference. You end up choosing things based on what's in front of you, not just what you are. The chapter explains that our behavior is a function of the person in their environment. Every habit depends on the context. And get this: we are super visual creatures. Our bodies have about 11 million sensory receptors, and like 10 million of those are just for sight. Some experts think half our brain's resources go to vision. So yeah, what you see really matters. A tiny change in what's visible can lead to a big change in what you do. That's why having environments full of cues for good habits and empty of cues for bad ones is so important. The good news is you're not stuck with whatever environment you have. You can actually be the architect of your environment. You can design your world to make the cues for your good habits impossible to ignore. Want to work out? Lay your workout clothes out the night before where you'll see them first thing. It's not just about seeing things, though. Environments matter because of your relationship to them. When you do a specific habit in a specific place over and over, your brain starts linking that habit with that place. Like walking into the kitchen makes you think about making coffee, or sitting at your desk cues you to focus. The problem comes in when you mix contexts. The perfect example is your phone. You use it for work, yes, but also for scrolling social media, checking email, playing games. When one space or item is linked to too many different things, it becomes this mishmash of cues. Your brain doesn't know what to do there, and guess what? The easier habits, like social media scrolling, usually win. The fix: assign specific habits to specific spaces. If possible, have separate places for work, studying, relaxing, eating. If you don't have a huge house, you can make zones or even just designate one specific chair for one specific activity, like only sitting in that chair when you're reading. This helps clarify the context for each habit. Ultimately, Chapter 6 drives home the point that controlling and designing your environment is a seriously powerful way to control your habits. By making the cues for good habits obvious and clear, and connecting habits to specific locations, you build a system where good behavior is the path of least resistance, reducing the need for constant willpower battles.
Chapter 7: The Secret to Self-Control. So this chapter kicks off with a powerful idea. People who seem to have great self-control usually don't need to use it very much. That sounds strange at first, right? But what James Clear is really saying is this: the secret to self-control isn't about being strong in the moment. It's about avoiding the temptation in the first place. He gives the example of someone trying to quit smoking. Most people assume they just need more willpower. But studies show that people who succeed long-term aren't necessarily more disciplined. They're just better at staying away from situations where they'd feel tempted. Here's the key message: it's easier to avoid temptation than to resist it. That means changing your environment is more effective than trying to change your willpower. Want to snack less? Don't leave chips on the counter. Want to scroll less on your phone? Delete the app or move it off your home screen. James calls this environment design. You shape the space around you so that the cues for bad habits are harder to reach or not there at all. If the cue doesn't show up, the craving never has a chance to kick in. He also brings up a fascinating example: drug addicts in the Vietnam War. Around 20% of American soldiers became addicted to heroin while overseas. But when they returned home, most of them quit almost immediately and stayed clean. Why? Because the environment changed. The cues, the people, the stress, all of that stayed behind in Vietnam. That shift broke the habit loop. So here's the big takeaway: you don't rise to the level of your motivation, you fall to the level of your environment. If you want to have better habits, the best place to start isn't with inner strength, it's with outer structure. Make the good choices obvious and easy. Make the bad ones invisible and inconvenient. Instead of fighting your habits, just stop letting them get triggered in the first place. Chapter 8: How to Make a Habit Irresistible. This chapter introduces the second law of behavior change: make it attractive. And James Clear starts with something really interesting. He says that craving, not the actual action, is what drives behavior. Think about it: when you smell cookies baking, you're not eating anything yet, but your brain is already lighting up with desire. That moment, that craving, is where habits really begin. And the stronger the craving, the more likely we are to act on it. So, how do you make a habit more attractive? James explains a concept from psychology called temptation bundling. It's a strategy where you link something you want to do with something you need to do. For example, I'll only watch my favorite show while running on the treadmill. I'll only check Instagram after I've written 100 words. This way, the habit becomes more appealing because you've attached a reward that you already crave. He also dives into how social environments shape our habits more than we think. We tend to imitate the habits of three groups: the close, like family and friends; the many, what most people around us are doing; and the powerful, those we admire or look up to. So, if you want to build better habits, one of the smartest things you can do is to join a culture where your desired behavior is the normal behavior. Want to read more? Hang out with people who love books. Want to get in shape? Be around people who value fitness. It's not about forcing yourself to act differently, it's about surrounding yourself with people who naturally encourage the habits you want. James also talks about how our brains are wired to seek out behaviors that are rewarded in the short term, especially those that help us gain approval, feel included, or raise our status. This goes way back to evolutionary biology. We're social creatures, and our survival used to depend on staying part of the group. So when a habit makes us feel connected or respected, we're much more likely to stick with it. The trick is to use that knowledge to your advantage. Design habits that not only give you personal benefits, but also help you feel socially rewarded. To wrap it all up, Chapter 8 is about making the habit itself something you look forward to. Whether that's by pairing it with a reward, surrounding yourself with the right people, or tapping into your natural desire for connection and approval, the more attractive the habit feels, the easier it becomes to stick with. Chapter 9 walks slowly but never backward. This chapter kicks off the third law of behavior change: make it easy. And the first thing James Clear challenges is a super common idea that success is about motivation. But he says no, the real game changer is action. Not intensity, not inspiration, just showing up consistently. He introduces a core idea here: habits are the compound interest of self-improvement. We don't need to make big changes all at once. We just need to take small actions consistently, and they'll start stacking up, like investing a little every day and letting time do its thing. To explain this, he talks about a photography class experiment. One group of students was graded purely on quantity: take 100 photos, get an A. The other group, graded on quality, just submit one perfect photo. What happened? The quantity group ended up with the best photos. Why? Because they took more action, learned from their mistakes, and improved along the way. Meanwhile, the quality group spent too much time theorizing and not enough time practicing. So what's the lesson? Motion feels productive, but only action produces results. You can plan, brainstorm, research, and read all day long, but none of that builds a habit. The habit only forms when you take action. Now, this is where the chapter gets super practical. James introduces the idea of the 2-minute rule. This is gold. The rule is simple: any habit should start with something that takes less than 2 minutes to do. So instead of saying, I'm going to read 30 books this year, say, I'll read 1 page. Instead of I'll work out for an hour, just I'll put on my running shoes. Why? Because once you start, momentum kicks in. But more importantly, it lowers the friction. You're not relying on motivation anymore. You're building a system that's too easy to fail. He calls these gateway habits. They're not the full routine, they're the entry point. And once the habit is in motion, it's way easier to keep it going. There's also a point he makes about focusing on repetition, not perfection. The goal isn't to be great right away, it's to become the kind of person who doesn't miss. The more times you repeat a habit, the stronger the neural pathway becomes and the more automatic it feels over time. So Chapter 9 is basically a mindset reset. Forget intensity, forget motivation. Just make it easy to start and then repeat it again and again. Because in the long run, what matters most isn't how good your habits are, it's how consistent you are with them. Chapter 10, the law of least effort. This chapter keeps building on the third law: make it easy. But now James Clear zooms in on something that's both obvious and easy to overlook. We naturally gravitate toward the path of least resistance. If a behavior is convenient, we're way more likely to do it. If it's even a little bit annoying or requires too much effort, we put it off or skip it completely. So instead of relying on willpower or motivation, James says we should design our environment to make good habits as easy as possible and bad habits harder. One example he gives is about a guy who wanted to practice more guitar. So what did he do? He took his guitar out of the closet and put it right in the middle of the living room. Result, he played it way more often. Because it was right there, visible, ready to go, zero friction. Same goes for bad habits. Want to stop watching so much TV? Unplug it, take the batteries out of the remote, or even unplug the whole thing and put it in a closet. Sounds like a hassle, right? Exactly, and that's the point. That little bit of friction makes it way easier to skip the habit. James brings up a concept called environment design, and it's a total game changer. The idea is, don't fight your environment, shape it to work for you. You shouldn't have to push yourself every day to make good choices. You should set things up so that the good choice is the easy choice. Here are a few practical ways to apply it. Want to drink more water? Leave a bottle on your desk or in your bag. Want to read more? Put a book on your pillow so it's the last thing you see before bed. Want to stop eating junk food? Don't buy it in the first place. He also talks about the concept of one-time choices, decisions you only have to make once, but they pay off again and again. Things like buying a water filter so you drink more at home, setting up autopay for your bills to avoid late fees, unsubscribing from junk emails to reduce distractions. These kinds of choices create a smoother path, less decision-making, less friction, fewer moments of resistance. The big idea is this: if you want to build better habits, don't try harder, make it easier. Set up your life so that the good habits almost happen by default, because at the end of the day, the more effortless a habit feels, the more likely you are to stick with it. Chapter 11, Walk Before You Run. We're still in the section about the third law, make it easy, and in this chapter, James Clear zooms in on one powerful idea: automating your habits. He starts by making this point really clear. The best way to make a habit stick is to remove the need to decide, because once something is automated, you don't have to use willpower or motivation to get it done. It just happens. He explains that humans naturally follow the law of least effort, and that's not laziness, it's efficiency. If we can do something with less energy, we will. So instead of fighting that tendency, use it to your advantage. Make the good habits effortless through automation. Now, how do you actually do that? He offers a couple strategies. One, use technology to your advantage. Automate what you can. Want to save money? Set up an auto transfer to your savings every month. Want to eat healthier? Use a meal delivery service that sends you prepped ingredients so there's less decision-making involved. Want to move more? Use an app that reminds you to stand or stretch during work. These are set it and forget it moves. You only have to make the decision once, and the habit keeps paying off automatically. 2. Use one-time choices that restructure your environment. This part connects back to the previous chapter. James talks about making one-time decisions that eliminate future friction. Things like buying a better mattress so you sleep more, setting up a standing desk so you're less sedentary, deleting distracting apps so you're not tempted every time you unlock your phone. Each one might take a little effort up front, but it saves you tons of decision fatigue in the long run. 3. Build routines, not just habits. This is an important shift. Habits are individual actions, but a routine is a whole string of habits that happen together like a little system. For example, after waking up, right arrow drink water, right arrow stretch, right arrow brush teeth, right arrow meditate for 2 minutes. When you turn your habits into a flow, it becomes second nature. You don't have to think about each step because each action leads naturally into the next one. And over time, the more you repeat that flow, the more your brain wires it together. That's how automatic behavior really works. James also talks about standardizing before you optimize, meaning don't try to be perfect, just get the reps in first. It's better to consistently walk a mile every day than to plan the perfect 10-mile run and never do it. Build the habit first, improve the details later. So to wrap this one up, the best habits are the ones you don't even notice, because they're so easy, so automatic, and so built into your routine that they just happen. And when that's the case, you don't have to rely on discipline. Your environment and systems are doing the work for you. Chapter 12, the cardinal rule of behavior chain. All right, so we've talked about making habits obvious, attractive, and easy. Now comes the fourth law, and it's all about how you feel right after doing a behavior. The key idea here is this: we're more likely to repeat a behavior if it feels rewarding. That's the cardinal rule of behavior change. If something feels good, we want to do it again. If it feels bad or neutral, we probably won't. And here's the tricky part: most of the rewards from good habits are delayed. You go to the gym today, but you don't instantly lose weight. You save a little money, but your bank account still looks the same. You meditate for 5 minutes, but you don't feel zen all day. On the other hand, bad habits usually come with immediate rewards. Junk food tastes great right now. Skipping the gym feels relaxing. Scrolling social media gives a hit of dopamine instantly. That imbalance is why bad habits are easy to build and good habits are hard. So the solution? Find ways to make good habits feel satisfying right away, even if the long-term reward takes time. Here are a couple of strategies James suggests. one-use reinforcement, add immediate rewards. After doing a good habit, give yourself a little treat, something that makes you feel good, even in a small way. Like marking a big red X on a calendar after working out, logging your progress in an app, saying nice job to yourself. Seriously, positive self-talk matters. This creates a feeling of closure, progress, and satisfaction, which keeps the habit loop going. 2. Track your habits and don't break the chain. James introduces the idea of a habit tracker. It can be as simple as a notebook, a spreadsheet, or an app. You record your habit each time you do it. The visual proof gives you a small reward, a sense of progress. Over time, this adds up to something called the don't break the chain effect. Once you've got a streak going, like working out 5 days in a row, you're motivated to keep it alive. Breaking the streak feels bad, and that pushes you to stay consistent. 3. Make missing twice the real danger zone. Everyone messes up. You skip a workout, miss a day, whatever, it happens. But James emphasizes, missing once is a mistake. Missing twice is the start of a new habit. The trick is to bounce back immediately. The sooner you return to the habit, the less damage is done. He also reminds us to not be a perfectionist. Tracking habits should feel good, not like a guilt trip. If it's causing stress or shame, it's not helping. So bottom line, make your habits satisfying in the short term and they'll become sustainable in the long term. That little bit of immediate pleasure, checking a box, seeing your streak, feeling proud, can be the difference between a habit that sticks and one that fades away. Chapter 13, How to Keep Your Habits on Track. So James starts this chapter with a simple truth. What is immediately rewarded is repeated. What is immediately punished is avoided. That's just how our brains are wired. We evolved in a world where immediate consequences mattered most, like eating something tasty right now or avoiding danger right now. Long-term thinking, that's a relatively new skill. This is why a lot of people struggle with good habits, because the payoff comes later. And on the flip side, bad habits feel great now, but the consequences pile up over time. James explains this using something called the immediate return vs. delayed return environment. In the immediate return environment, like how our ancestors lived, your actions had quick feedback. You hunted, you ate. You touched fire, you got burned. In the delayed return environment, our modern world, you go to work and your paycheck comes in 2 weeks. You work out and the benefits show up months later. This mismatch is why bad habits are so tempting and good habits are hard to maintain. We're built to care about now. So what can you do? Use a reward system that feels good instantly. James gives some clever ideas here. If your habit doesn't feel rewarding right away, add a little pleasure to it. For example, only watch your favorite show while doing the dishes. Only listen to your favorite podcast while working out. Put $1 into a fun jar every time you stick to a habit. It's like bribing your future self, but in a good way. The power of tracking. We touched on this in the last chapter, but James doubles down here. Tracking your habits is a form of immediate reward. It gives your brain a quick win, and that feeling builds momentum. And it doesn't have to be fancy. Even something like checking a box on a calendar or writing a heavy in a notebook can feel satisfying. What matters is the consistency, seeing that visual proof of your progress. Success is the product of daily habits, not once-in-a-lifetime transformations. So keep showing up, keep giving yourself little rewards. That's how you feel progress even when you can't see it yet. Identity reinforcement. This part's subtle but important. Every time you complete a habit, you're casting a vote for the type of person you want to become. And every little reward, every small celebration helps reinforce that identity. You're not just going for a run, you're becoming a runner. You're not just prepping food, you're being someone who eats healthy. And when it feels good to be that person, you're more likely to keep doing the things that person would do. Let's go chapter 14 of Atomic Habits, the final one in the fourth law, make it satisfying. This one's called the cardinal rule of behavior change. James opens by hitting us with a simple but powerful idea. If a habit is immediately satisfying, we're way more likely to repeat it. If it's not satisfying, even if it's good for us, it probably won't stick. That's why the key to behavior change, what James calls the cardinal rule, is this. What is immediately rewarded is repeated. What is immediately punished is avoided. Yeah, we've heard that before. But here, he really digs into how this applies in the long run, especially once the new habit energy wears off. Why good habits often feel unrewarding at first. The problem with most good habits, like working out, reading, meditating, is that they don't come with quick rewards. You don't get fit from one gym session. You don't feel enlightened after one meditation. So your brain's like, hey, what's the point? Bad habits, on the other hand, eating chips, scrolling TikTok, skipping your workout, those feel good right away. The damage comes later, and that's why they're so sticky. The trick: add satisfaction now. So James encourages us to engineer immediate satisfaction into our good habits, especially in the early days. One idea is to use a habit tracker or visual measurement system. It's not just about seeing progress, it's about feeling it. Checking a box, coloring in a square, watching a streak grow, those little signals matter more than you think. Another tip: use reinforcement. Basically, reward yourself in small ways when you complete a habit. Finished your run, treat yourself to a smoothie. Hit your reading goal, mark it off with a gold star. Meditated every day this week. Take a relaxing bath as a mini reward. It doesn't have to be big, it just has to be now. Focus on identity, not just outcome. James circles back to one of the book's main ideas. The habits that stick are the ones that reinforce your identity. When the reward becomes being the kind of person who does that thing, you're in a whole new game. You're not doing it for the results anymore. You're doing it because that's who you are. So even if the habit itself isn't always fun, there's satisfaction in the self-respect it brings. That's the long-term reward. Chapter 15, The Truth About Talent, When Genes Matter and When They Don't. James opens with a crucial but often overlooked truth. Yes, you can build better habits, but how far you go and how easily you maintain them depends in part on your natural inclinations, your genes. Let's be real, not everyone is wired the same way. Some people are naturally high energy, some are naturally detail-oriented, some people love risk, others hate it. These things aren't just personality quirks, they're biological tendencies. And that leads to the big idea of this chapter: habits are easier when they fit your nature. Don't fight your nature, work with it. James compares building habits to playing sports. You can train for any sport, but you'll thrive most in the one that suits your physical and mental wiring. Same with habits. If you're naturally analytical, tracking your finances might feel exciting. If you're naturally social, joining group workouts might actually energize you, trying to build habits that go against your wiring. That's possible, but it'll always feel like a grind. Instead, look for the habits that align with your strengths. That's how you make consistency easier. The key: find the version of the habit that's right for you. Here's a cool example James gives. Say you want to stay fit, you don't have to run. Maybe you hate running, and that's fine. Try swimming or dance or martial arts. The outcome is fitness, but the path should match your personality. That flexibility is crucial. The best habit isn't the ideal habit. It's the habit you'll actually do because it feels right for you. Find your flow zone. Another big point in this chapter: you should aim for habits that hit a sweet spot between too easy and too hard. That's where you enter something psychologists call the Goldilocks zone: not too boring, not too overwhelming, just challenging enough to keep you engaged. And here's the thing: this zone is different for everyone. What feels easy to you might feel impossible to someone else. What excites you might totally stress another person out. So again, don't copy someone else's system blindly. Customize, adapt, make your habits fit you. To sum it up, Chapter 15 is all about self-awareness. Success isn't about forcing yourself into someone else's mold. It's about matching your habits to your natural strengths, choosing the version that excites you, and working in that sweet spot where progress feels rewarding, not exhausting. Let me know when you're ready for Chapter 16. It dives deeper into motivation and how to stick with things even when the excitement fades. Chapter 16, The Goldilocks Rule: How to Stay Motivated in Life and Work. In Chapter 16 of Atomic Habits, James Clear talks about the Goldilocks Rule, a powerful idea that can help us stay motivated in everything we do. The Goldilocks Rule is simple but effective. To keep your motivation high, you need to find tasks that are not too easy but also not too hard. They should be just the right amount of challenge, not too little and not too much. When the task is too easy, you get bored, and boredom kills motivation. On the other hand, if it's too difficult, you can feel overwhelmed and frustrated, which can make you want to quit. The trick is to find that sweet spot, the perfect balance where the challenge is enough to keep you engaged, but not so much that it feels impossible. Clear explains that this balance is what creates a state called flow, a mental state where you're fully immersed and focused on what you're doing. When you're in flow, time seems to fly by and you feel like you're making real progress. And that sense of progress is key to staying motivated. One of the best ways to stay motivated is by focusing on the small wins. Even tiny progress can fuel your desire to keep going. It doesn't matter how small the step forward is, as long as you're moving in the right direction, it keeps you motivated to continue. Clear also emphasizes the importance of repetition. When you practice something repeatedly, even if it feels hard at first, you'll gradually improve, and with improvement comes momentum. The more you repeat something, the easier it becomes, and that's when you start seeing bigger results over time. Another key element Clear talks about is the power of tracking your progress. Whether you're trying to build a physical habit, like working out, or a mental habit, like learning a new language, keeping track of your progress is crucial. It can be as simple as marking off a calendar or using an app, anything that lets you visually see how far you've come. This sense of progress, no matter how small, is incredibly motivating. Finally, Clear discusses how important it is to set goals that push you to the edge of your abilities. Goals that are too easy won't challenge you enough to keep you engaged, but when they're just the right level of difficulty, they'll inspire you to keep pushing forward. So, the key takeaway from this chapter is that motivation thrives when you find that perfect balance of challenge. When you're doing something that's just hard enough to keep you focused, but not so hard that you feel discouraged, you'll be able to maintain long-term motivation and make continuous progress toward your goals. Find that sweet spot, and you'll keep moving forward without burning out. Chapter 17: How an Accountability Partner Can Change Everything. In Chapter 17, James Clear dives into one of the most effective strategies for sticking to a habit: accountability. He starts with a simple truth: we're more likely to follow through on something when someone else is watching. When we know that someone will check in with us, or that we'll have to explain ourselves if we fall short, we become much more motivated to stay on track. That's why having an accountability partner can make a huge difference. Clear shares the story of how, in the 18th century, a businessman named Joseph M. Lambert created a public agreement called a habit contract. He agreed to certain behaviors and set up real consequences if he failed to follow through. What made it powerful wasn't just the contract itself, it was the fact that others were involved. His friends and colleagues knew about the agreement. That external pressure made him more likely to stick to it. So, what's a habit contract? It's basically a written agreement where you lay out your commitment to a habit, along with the consequences if you don't follow through. It can be serious or playful, like paying a friend money if you skip the gym, or even agreeing to do a silly challenge. The important part is that it adds real stakes to your behavior. Clear points out that this kind of social pressure is often more effective than personal willpower. Left to ourselves, we might give in to excuses, but when someone else is involved, someone who's holding us accountable, we tend to rise to the occasion. We don't want to disappoint others, and we especially don't want to break a promise we've made publicly. Another key insight from this chapter is that we behave differently when we're being observed. Studies show that people are more productive when they know they're being watched, even if it's just by a mirror or a camera. Our behavior changes because we want to be seen in a good light. That's why accountability works. It taps into our natural desire for social approval. The chapter ends with a powerful message: you don't have to do this alone. Building better habits doesn't mean relying only on willpower or discipline. Sometimes the smartest move is to bring someone else in, someone who cares about your growth and isn't afraid to call you out when you slip. So if you're serious about making a habit stick, don't just keep it to yourself. Find someone to hold you accountable, write down your commitment, set clear consequences, and let the social pressure work in your favor. Chapter 18: The Truth About Talent, When Genes Matter and When They Don't. In Chapter 18, James Clear explores a fascinating question: what role does talent, or our genes, really play in building good habits and achieving success? He starts by pointing out something we all kind of know deep down: people are different. Some of us pick things up quickly, while others take more time. Some are naturally better at sports, music, or math. And yes, that's partly because of genetics. Our DNA shapes things like physical strength, memory, temperament, and even how we respond to stress. But here's the key point: genes do not determine your destiny, they only influence your starting line. What really matters, Clear says, is how you align your habits with your natural abilities. He introduces a powerful idea. Genes do not eliminate the need for hard work, they clarify where to focus it. In other words, talent can give you a head start, but long-term success comes from aligning your efforts with your strengths. When you choose habits and goals that fit who you naturally are, everything becomes easier. You'll feel more motivated, more focused, and more likely to stick with it. Clear uses the analogy of sports. Someone who's 6'6" is naturally better suited to basketball than gymnastics. That doesn't mean they'll automatically be great at basketball. They still have to train and practice, but their body gives them a natural advantage in that field. So how does this apply to habits? It means you should choose habits that match your personality and strengths. If you're an introvert, for example, don't force yourself into social habits that drain you. Instead, find a way to reach your goals through more reflective or independent paths. If you're a night owl, don't copy a 5 a.m. morning routine just because someone else said it works. Build a system that fits you. The chapter also introduces the concept of explore and exploit. In the early stages of habit building, it's important to explore, try new things, see what sticks, and get a sense of what you're good at. But once you find what works, it's time to exploit it, double down on what suits you best, and build habits around your natural edge. Clear encourages us to ask, what feels easy for me but hard for others? That's a powerful clue to where your natural talent lies and where you're most likely to succeed long term. The bottom line, the best habits are the ones that align with your nature. They don't feel like a constant uphill battle, they flow with your strengths. That doesn't mean they're effortless, but they're sustainable. And when a habit feels right for you, it becomes far easier to stick with it, even when things get tough. Chapter 19, The Goldilocks Rule: How to Stay Motivated in Life and Work. In Chapter 19, James Clear turns our attention to an often overlooked but crucial part of building good habits: the reality of boredom. Here's the truth: even the best habits become boring sometimes. No matter how passionate you are when you start, at some point the excitement fades, the gym feels repetitive, the diet gets dull. The writing, the studying, the practice, all of it starts to feel like a grind. And that's where most people fail, not because they lack motivation, not because they chose the wrong habit, but because they couldn't handle the boredom that comes with consistency. Clear explains that successful people are not the ones who avoid boredom, they're the ones who can handle it. They show up even when they don't feel like it. They do the work even when it's not exciting. Why? Because they understand that true mastery only comes when you push through the moments that feel ordinary, repetitive, or even dull. He gives the example of elite athletes, writers, and performers. These people don't wake up feeling fired up every single day, but they've trained themselves to act in spite of how they feel. They've learned to fall in love with the process, or at the very least, to respect it enough to keep going. This chapter also challenges a common myth that you need to feel inspired or motivated before you act. In reality, it often works the other way around. Action leads to motivation. The more you show up, even when it's boring, the more progress you make, and progress creates its own kind of energy. Clear encourages us to develop what he calls professional habits. That means treating your habits like a pro would, showing up whether it's fun or not, just like a professional shows up to work. You don't wait for the perfect mood. You just do the work, knowing that consistency is more powerful than motivation. He's not saying you need to be robotic or never take a break. What he's really saying is, you have to be okay with repetition. If you only do the work when it's new or exciting, you'll never build anything that lasts. But if you can embrace the routine and even the boredom, you'll put yourself in a position to succeed where most people quit. Chapter 20, The Downside of Creating Good Habits. In this final chapter, James Clear gives us an honest and important reminder: even good habits have a downside. And understanding this is key to making sure our habits truly serve us, not limit us. Clear starts by pointing out that habits are powerful because they make actions automatic. That's what we want: to do the right thing without needing willpower every time. But here's the catch: once something becomes automatic, we stop thinking about it, we stop paying attention, we stop improving. Think about it: when you first learn a skill, you're highly engaged, you reflect, you adjust, you grow. But once you get comfortable, it's easy to slip into autopilot. And when that happens, your growth stalls. You're doing the habit technically, but you're no longer getting better. You're just going through the motions. Clear explains that this is the trap of habits without reflection. If you never pause to question your routines, they can quietly become outdated or even harmful. Something that once helped you grow might start holding you back. That's why reflection and review are essential, even when your habits feel solid. He introduces the concept of continuous improvement, or what's often called kaizen in Japanese philosophy. The idea is simple: never stop refining, never stop adjusting. Even small improvements made consistently can lead to massive growth over time. To do this, Clear recommends building in regular reflection. Once a week, once a month, whatever works for you. Ask yourself, is this habit still serving me? Am I getting better or just staying the same? What could I tweak, even slightly, to improve? This kind of intentional review keeps your habits alive. It keeps you growing. It turns good enough into getting better. Clear also reminds us not to let habits turn into identity traps. For example, if you've always identified as the fitness person or the productivity guy, you might keep doing certain things just to protect that image, even when they no longer match your values or goals. That's why it's important to stay flexible. Let your identity evolve with your growth. The book closes with a message of balance. Habits are tools, powerful ones, but they're only useful if we stay aware and intentional. Use them to build your future, but don't let them box you in.